And joining me now is someone who joined President Biden yesterday in Atlanta, Democratic Senator Reverend Raphael Warnock of Georgia. Senator, thanks so much for joining us. So Biden and Trump were both in the Peach State last night, highlighting just how critical Georgia is going to be in November. A recent Fox poll found Trump leading Biden by 8 points in Georgia. The same poll shows nearly 1 in 4 black voters in Georgia prefer Trump over Biden. How worried are you about Biden voters turning out in Georgia this fall?
Well, good to be with you. Happy Sunday morning. Listen, it's still early in the election season, and I can tell you as somebody whose name has been on the ballot 5 times in 3 years, I know a little something about Georgia voters. And I think that as we move through this election, and it becomes clearer to people that we have a binary choice. The contrast couldn't be more stark between about who's ready to serve in the White House. We've seen both of these men serve in the White House. That choice is clearly Joe Biden, and Georgians will get it right for Joe Biden just as they got it right for me.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Claims that he has enough signatures to get on the ballot in Georgia. Biden only won Georgia by less than 12,000 votes 4 years ago. How worried are you that Kennedy could be a spoiler in November?
Listen, again, I can tell you that as I started the race, people didn't think I could win. Joe Biden won Georgia the last time by about 12,000 votes. Votes, by the way, the former president tried to steal. And yet here we are. Both of those men were here yesterday because the road to the White House goes through Georgia. And I can't wait to continue to make the case alongside Joe Biden in the months ahead.
On the subject of Trump attempting allegedly to steal the vote in Georgia, he's being prosecuted for that by Fani Willis, the district attorney in Fulton County. Trump has been attacking her, especially for that relationship she had with one of her prosecutors. Do you still feel like Fani Willis is the best person to bring this case forward?
Well, I'm never surprised when I see Donald Trump attacking women, especially black women. This is who he is. And I know that there are those who are trying to put their finger on the scale here. But this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to watch the American judicial process play out. Donald Trump deserves a hearing before a jury of his peers. In this case, it's voters from Georgia. And I know that there are folks on the other side of the aisle, unfortunately, who are trying to lean in here and put their finger on the scale. I'm not going to pile on. I'm going to allow the judicial process to proceed.
A horrible tragedy in your state. I don't need to tell you. Laken Riley, a 22-year-old Augusta student, or Augusta University nursing student, she was bludgeoned to death last month while on a run on the UGA campus. The suspect is an undocumented immigrant from Venezuela who was released after crossing the border illegally, had a criminal record in New York, was still a free person. Biden mentioned her during his speech Thursday night, pushed to do so by a Georgia Republican. Take a listen.
Not really. Lincoln Riley, an innocent young woman who was killed by an illegal. That's right. But how many of the thousands of people being killed by illegals? To her parents, I say, my heart goes out to you, having lost children myself.
At his rally last night, Trump met with Laken Riley's family. He blamed Biden's border policies for her death. The Rileys are your constituents. Is it not true that there were policy failures that led to this tragic murder?
Listen, first of all, let me just say that my heart goes out to this family, the family of Laken Riley. And I can tell you as a pastor who has done hundreds of eulogies and presided over all kinds of funerals, there is no grief worse than when nature is tragically reversed, and rather than the children burying the parents have to bury the children. And so it's unfortunate that in this moment of grief, there are those who are trying to score cheap political points. The border must be secured. We know this. There's agreement about that on both sides, which is why we had a bipartisan piece of legislation before us just a matter of weeks ago. And the fact that there are those who walked away from this bipartisan legislation, or at least a chance to debate it, And now they're trying to score political points in the wake of a young woman's death. That is craven politics at its worst. It's what turns people away from politics. And I think we can do much better than that. We can secure the border, and we can make sure that we are doing everything we can to make sure our children are safe.
Let's turn to the Middle East. President Biden has been critical of Israel for blocking humanitarian aid and is taking steps to address what you've called a catastrophic humanitarian nightmare in Gaza. Biden did say yesterday that there is no red line that would lead him to, quote, cut off all weapons to Israel, as some Democrats have called for. What's your reaction to what President Biden said yesterday? Do you think he's doing enough to ensure that American-made arms going to Israel are not being used to exacerbate the horrific humanitarian crisis?
Israel is our ally. It lives in a dangerous neighborhood. But you cannot look away from, and the president is not looking away, from the tragic situation in Gaza. We've seen some 30,000 Gazans already killed, many of them innocent men, women, and children. I can tell you that as I put my own children to bed last night, my son had an incessant cough, and it just broke my heart just to see him coughing, and I had to give him his treatment. And as I was thinking about that, I was thinking really about parents in Gaza who deal with these situations, and much, much worse in the midst of a war, torn area, children experiencing amputations without anesthesia, children who are wounded and have no living relatives. We've got to make our way to that path that leads to peace. I think the president is leaning in hard, pushing Netanyahu to do this, and it couldn't happen sooner. I hope that as we get closer to the holy season of Ramadan and the season of Passover shortly thereafter, we will dig deep into the cisterns of faith and conscience that inform us from our various faith traditions and find our way to peace.
Before we go, and I know you're about to go preach, you are one of only 2 ordained ministers in the United States Senate. The other, coincidentally, is my next guest, Senator Lankford of Oklahoma. I wonder what you make of Donald Trump's deep support among white conservative evangelical Christians. Does it surprise you at all?
Well, I think Donald Trump is focused on himself. And I think that as a Christian, you know, I'm a Matthew 25 Christian, where Jesus said, I was hungry and you fed me. I was sick and you attended to me. And so that's why I think it's important that we expand Medicaid in Georgia, that we deal with the fact that there are seniors who are having to choose between prescription drugs and buying groceries. That's my North Star. That's what informs my faith and my politics. And I think that that there is a clear choice in the days ahead as we move through this election. Donald Trump is not worthy of the office that he seeks.
Senator Reverend Raphael Warnock, have a lovely time at church this morning, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Happy Sunday.